Hello, and welcome to a Midpoint Library Technology class. My name is Jacob, and today we're going to be getting into Microsoft PowerPoint. Now, this video and instructions are going to be a little bit different than some of the ones I've done in the past. We're going to look at a very brief PowerPoint that I put together, kind of highlighting what is PowerPoint, what are the alternatives, and what are some easy mistakes people make in PowerPoint. And then we're going to go straight into a tutorial where I will show you how to do all the different steps of making new slides, changing the style on slides, inserting a whole bunch of information, working with transitions, animations, and everything that you can do. We're not going to go super deep into some of the crazy things you can do with PowerPoint. This video is meant more for beginner users, people that have never used PowerPoint or used it in school a long time ago but aren't familiar with how some of the things have changed, so that they can start to use it on their own, at home, or at their place of work, so that they're able to make the best presentations possible. So let's get started using Microsoft PowerPoint, brought to you by Midpoint Library. So first of all, what is PowerPoint? PowerPoint's a presentation computer program. It's developed and sold by Microsoft. It is the largest presentation computer program used pretty much anywhere. It allows you to create engaging presentations to help inform your audience, and it's widely used in by businesses, educators, and other entities, including the United States military. The U.S. military makes so many PowerPoints. If you ever look up information about any programs that they have, it's always going to be in a PowerPoint. So why is PowerPoint important? Mainly because a lot of times if you're looking for a new job and you see you need to use different computer skills, and Microsoft Office is generally something that they want you to have experience in, PowerPoint is a part of Microsoft Office. So if you're ever looking for a new job, or if you're just looking to get better at different computer programs, for any reason, PowerPoint's a good one to start with. So PowerPoint is not without its own failings. It sometimes gets a really bad rap because people don't use PowerPoint necessarily in the best way possible. So an example of a slide that does not look great would be something like this. This slide has way too much information. If you put too much information on any single slide, it's going to leave your audience confused. A lot of college professors or high school teachers might put together PowerPoints, and they're so full of information that by the time that they finish going through it, the students are only halfway through taking notes. If you can't copy down everything on the PowerPoint slide, or if you can't quickly look over it and see the important information, it's got too much information. The best thing to do in this situation is to either break up the slides have more slides with less information on each slide, or find the things that you might be able to cut. A big problem people have with Microsoft PowerPoint is making a slide and then speaking through every single thing that they write down. Generally, you're going to want to avoid this and just have super brief ideas that you can then explain more as you go through them. So, a very short bullet point explaining what these charts are, and then you as the presenter could do a lot more in-depth discussion on it. This is a little bit different if you're using Microsoft PowerPoint as a way of doing training videos or to help onboard new people at a job. In this case, you may want to have more information just spread out over a number of slides. This also shows where some people have a whole bunch of graphics on their slides. You probably could do without these explosion looking things, the lightning bolts and the smiley face, and then also a huge number of charts and graphs. At most, I would recommend only having probably 2 charts or graphs on a slide. Of course, this could change if you have a very particular need, but as soon as you get more than 2, if you're comparing them, it gets very jumbled. These charts don't have any information, I just inserted them, but already looking at them, you just go, I have no idea how these are related. What am I looking at? So some of these points that I put down, Also very important is if you see it down at the bottom, it's pretty much impossible to read, but if you use a very small font as a result of having too much information, it's pretty much impossible to read, even if you're blowing your PowerPoint up on a huge projector screen. So avoid doing that. You want to have it easy to read, easy to look at, so people can very quickly get the information and then focus on you, the presenter, who's giving all of the context that they need. Another problem that people do is just making their slides way too boring. This has absolutely no visuals. It is just a white background with black text. And if you don't have a lot of content on your slide, it's going to be very boring for the people that are sitting through your presentation. You don't want them to be zoning out and thinking, oh my gosh, what is going on here? So you want to find a happy middle ground between the two. So maybe just a couple bullet points, maybe just a couple images on each slide so that you can break it up over time and just move through the whole thing at a pretty quick pace. You don't want to dwell too long on one slide or people start thinking, what is going on? Finally, this video is going to be talking about PowerPoint, but there are a couple alternatives available. The number one that I oftentimes see is Google Slides. So Google Slides, it's included with a Google account, which is awesome because it makes it completely free. In order to use PowerPoint, it does have a cost attached to it. Sometimes businesses will, if you're on a work computer, they've already paid for that. But if you're trying to use it at home, if you don't already have PowerPoint purchased, Google Slides can be a great way of jumping into making presentations and seeing some of the ways that something that looks similar to all of this information here on this screen. Google Slides are also very easily shareable because all the information you save on a Google slide is saved on your Google Drive. That means you can access it from any computer or any device. All you need to do is sign into your Google account. The downside of Google Slides is that it lacks some of the features of PowerPoint, and so if it doesn't exactly mirror as a perfect one-for-one carbon copy. There's a couple things that are easier to do or different to do in PowerPoint, and so if you're getting started, Google Slides can be great, but eventually you're going to want to move into PowerPoint if you need to make a whole bunch of presentations. Another alternative is Canva. Canva is actually kind of a graphic design website that you can sign up for an account with. They have a huge number of visual elements. You can use it to make presentations. You can use it to make signs. There are a bunch of really cool looking different templates. You get a lot of control over the graphics involved. There's not as much focus on text. It's a lot more graphically driven. And the downside of this is that some of the elements do cost money to use. Prezi is another huge alternative that I often see generally in college classrooms. It creates dynamic presentations without slides. So if you ever look up a Prezi, it's almost like it's a huge map and then you click through the map to get all of the information, and it moves and has a whole bunch of transitions and animations that make it really fun to watch. Prezi's focus more on storytelling. You're able to jump back and forth a lot between different slides, or to move yourself to a whole different part earlier than you normally would. You don't have to skip through, oh, let me go forward 10 slides. You just click where you need to go and it'll take you there. The downside to Prezi is that all presentations are publicly viewable unless you purchase a subscription. So if you're doing something that you may not want to share with the whole world, you would have to pay money to Prezi in order to have that. The other biggest alternative that's not listed here is Apple Keynote, which is included on all new Apple devices, or if you get a new iPhone, you can download it straight from the App Store. Kind of similar to PowerPoint. It is a little bit more polished, a little bit better looking with some more user accessibility. The main reason we're looking at PowerPoint as opposed to Keynote is because in most office or work environments, PowerPoint is the default. You're going to be using this unless for some other reason you're using something else. So with all of that being said, I'm going to now jump into the tutorial. You've probably noticed that my mouse is super big and is this cool orange color. I made my mouse icon a little bit larger so that as I go through these steps, you can follow along with me and see exactly what I am clicking as we go through each of these tabs and see what they all do. So the first thing that you will have to do whenever making a new PowerPoint, here, let's close out of that. Let's go to, just going to go and open up a brand new PowerPoint for us. When you open up PowerPoint, you're going to see a screen kind of like this. You have a couple default templates that you can fill in from, or you can just use the blank presentation. For the purposes of this, because we're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff, I'm going to start with a blank presentation and show you where you can build off of there. If you already have a PowerPoint saved, you can also go and open it from the same place. This is the home, so it has all the information, including recent PowerPoints that I may have put together. If you just want to focus on a new one, click on New. It's going to show you a bunch more templates that are already available. But again, let's start just with a blank presentation. Once you get in, you may see this design ideas pop up. This is in newer versions of PowerPoint. There is a way to access this without it, so I'm just going to close out of that. You're going to see that you have one slide that's set up like a title, generally also has a subtitle section, and no other information. So if you want to go and set a title, you'll click in the box and then type anything that you may want to. For instance, test PowerPoint. And then if you want to go to a subtitle, you can click in here and type in more information. If you want to change the font, you can highlight your text by dragging over it with your mouse and go up here when you're on the Home tab to change to the fonts. This is very similar to what you would do in Microsoft Office or any of the Microsoft Office products. So you can switch that up. You can also change the font size just like you would in Microsoft Word. You're able to bold, italics, underline if you want. You are also able to add a bit of a shadow to it that makes it a little bit more dynamic if that's what you're looking for, or do a strike through of the information. Some fonts do not allow you to do a strike through. So if you need to strike through the information, you may need to play around with your fonts to get one that'll let you do it. We also have the other text options here available so that if we want to highlight something, let's take some of these off, just click the highlighter, and of course you can change the color with the drop down. The same goes for the font color. If you want to switch up the font color, you have all of these options preset and standard available, and if you ever need to change it, you can do more colors. If you would like to match a color in a different portion, or if you've added in an image and want to try and match the color more closely, the eyedropper function allows you to hover over something, click on it, and then it's going to take that information. The final main things that we'll see on the Home tab, if you ever need to move your information around, you're going to have all of your paragraph. You can do it so that it's aligned to the left, centered, aligned to the right, or justified. And then you also have options to set bullet points, or you can go through and for another list just do numbering for the whole list. So let's say you have this information. The next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and make a new slide so that you can start your entire presentation. Now to do that, there are a couple ways. You can either go to New Slide on the Home tab, click it down. It's going to give you a bunch of different slide options. You have title, you could do another title slide, title and content. Now the content, if you look at it, you see all these kind of images. That could be text, that could be a graph. You could also use an image from the internet or a piece of clip art. A section header, which is very similar to a title. It's just formatted a little bit differently. You can do two content. This will give you a header at the top and two different boxes that you'll be able to go through. Comparison, this is very similar to the two content. You could do two charts, but if you look closely, there are sections for text above each of the two blocks for your content. So you could name one. If we were doing a comparison between PowerPoint and Apple Keynote, we could have one that says PowerPoint and then all the information. The other one would say Keynote and have all the information there. You can also just do one that is title only. You can make a blank slide. This could be used a lot of times if you just need to take a short break and you want to put up a blank slide in between before you get back into the work. Title only slides, I've used these in the past if I'm running a workshop or something and you need to say, all right, take 15 minutes or turn and talk to a partner so that you can come up with some ideas. Next is content and caption. That allows you to have a box for you to put your content on. You could do an image or a graph, and then right next to it you have a small square for text where you would be able to explain what the graph means. Why is this important? And then picture with caption. If you don't click from the new slide, you are also able to right click over here. Once you're in the slide window, click on new slide, and it's going to immediately jump you straight to one with a header and the space for elements down here. You can also, if you're right-clicking down here, copy and paste slides, reuse slides, or add a section. Once you have a new slide pulled up, you're able to type in the information. So this would be test slide 1, and then down here you can type in any information that you want to have. Generally it'll automatically default to using bullet points. So if you just hit the enter key, it's going to pop you down to the next line and immediately get you started with another bullet point. If instead of bullet points, you would like to have your objects numbered, maybe for showing the importance, just highlight everything, go up here to the numbering when you're on the Home tab, click on that, and it's going to number them. If you see the little drop down next to these, this is very similar again to how Microsoft Word handles any of its lists and bullet points. It gives you options to do different types of bullet points, or to do Roman numerals or ABCs if you're doing numbering. That's the basics on how to make a slide, how to type in the slide. You'll see that there's different boxes. You can also, if you need to, move these boxes around. If you need to find your way, you'll see these guidelines, like this one right going straight down the middle, showing me that it's centered. If I move that off, I'm no longer going to see that. That tells me that this is not currently in the center of the page. That's okay based on the presentation you're trying to make. I generally like to have all my stuff formatted about the same way. So I'll move that back down. Gives me kind of an outline of where everything's set on a grid. Now, we have our title slide and one slide of information, but it doesn't look very good. So we go over to the Design tab. The Design tab is going to give us a lot of these test designs. A lot of these are similar to the templates, which are available for you to select as soon as you open up PowerPoint. And we can go through these and see some of the different styles that are available. Generally, I like a slide that is not super busy. Something that has way too much going on can be a little bit hard or distracting to read. So I like a clean slide, but depending on what you need to work on, of course, that can change. So you can always go through here, see which one looks best. As soon as you decide on a slide style, which one do we want? This one looks pretty cool. Click on the hat, and you're going to see that it actually changes every single slide that you already have. Some of the font choices will also be updated in order to be more closely, let's take this highlighter away, in order to be what fits that design format. Of course, as soon as you're there, you can change it back to anything that you may want to. And if you decide that you don't like the design that you have, you can go and click on another one, and over here you'll see variants. Now the variants will be for whichever theme that you've decided for your design. It'll just be a little bit of different color palettes for them. You can pick through those, see which one looks best. That way if I hand on this, but I decide I don't like that kind of dark blue color, I can see what it would look like with green, red, or purple. We'll stick with the dark blue for now. Over here, in some newer versions of PowerPoint, you'll start to see some design ideas. Now, these are things that are going to take me away from the default design setups and look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more pop. A lot of times they also include transitions or animations in them. So if you click on any of these, for instance, if I decide I like this one, it's going to reformat the slide. This one's kind of got a nice, we click off. When we go to the presentation, it kind of fades in. Some other ones would be like this. We'll stick with this one right here. And these design ideas, there's normally a lot of them. You can always click down and see more. The further that you scroll, the more removed they will be from the theme that you've already set up. But you can always find something pretty cool there. It lets you save a little bit of time if you don't want to go through and set up a whole bunch of transitions or animations. And if you just see it out of the corner of your eye and say, huh, I like the way that looks, you can click on that, and that will just change the design for that one slide. That will not change the theme for the entire PowerPoint slide. Now, if you have a whole slide, you generally want it to fit the same theme, but there are cases where you may need to have something that is not fitting the theme that you're using. In this case, here, let's add a third slide, for example. So when I go to the new slides, because I've set a theme at this point, all of them are immediately going to be loaded up with this theme already. Have the same background already and be set up that way. If I decide that I want one slide to have a different design, I'll select that slide, go up to whatever I'm going to be switching it to, right click on the theme that I want, and click Apply to Selected Slides. Now, all of these slides will have the original theme, but the slide that I've selected and changed the theme for is going to look different. If you want to change it back, you can just go up here, click it again, the one that you're using, and it'll move it back to what you need it to be. That's a basic overview of the different styles that you have for your slides. It lets you change the themes, and you can find all of that in the Design tab. Next, we're going to be looking at inserting information. The Insert tab is right next to the Home tab, and you're going to see that you have a couple options available. Most of them will be grayed out like it was until you click into a box. You'll be able to select pictures, screenshots, you can make a photo album. Very importantly, you can make a table. You can add in shapes, icons. There's also 3D models there. There's some stock ones. If you have created a 3D model that you'd like to put in, you're able to, if it's saved on your device, update it into PowerPoint. Smart art, you can make charts. There's a whole bunch of different chart options, as well as word art, headers, footers, text box, equations, symbols, a ton of options for things that you can insert into any of your PowerPoints. Now, in newer versions, you also see that there are these little tiny graphics inside of this box that I'm in. If I mouse over that, it'll tell me that I can immediately insert a table, insert a chart, a smart art graphic. So instead of having to click through the icons up along this bar, I'm able to click straight into the box, and it will then give me the way to set up a table. Or if I want a chart, I can click on the Insert Chart icon, and it's going to open up the same exact page as if I had clicked Chart up here. There's also options to insert videos. Of course, the videos that you'd insert would be ones that you have saved on your device and can immediately add them in. So let's look at inserting a basic chart into this one. So to do this, you can either click on Insert Chart or click on the chart illustration when you're in the Insert tab. From here, it's going to give you a lot of different options of different types of charts. You have surface charts, radar charts. You can also pull up maps, area charts, bar charts, pie charts, line charts, pretty much anything that you would need, including box and whisker. Once you, let's make a pie chart. Along the top, you're going to see different options for the pie chart. So the default is this guy, kind of the one that we know and love and see all the time. If you'd like it to be set more at an angle, you can click here, and it will give you a image of what it will look like if you choose to use a 3D pie chart. There's also pie of pie, which shows you this section, this pink section of the pie chart. It's going to break down into that more information. You can do a bar of pie, which is going to do the same thing as pie of pie, but instead of being two circles, it's going to show you a bar chart that pulls information off of one section of the pie chart. And finally, a donut, which is the same as a pie chart. It's just not quite as filled with information. It's more of a ring than the full circle. Click on the one that you would like to use, and it's going to immediately add it and open up a little pull down that's going to look a lot like Microsoft Excel. From here, you're able to click into each of the boxes. Let's make this. And you can change, if I wanted to say instead of 8.2, it's 15, I can change that number. Click into a different box. If this one's just 1, it'll change that. And as you see, it changes the sizes of each of the sections as I do these numbers. If I want to change the guide on it and say, okay, well, instead of first quarter, I want this to say January, I can change it right there, and it's going to change. Same goes if I want to make this one February. Same as that way. If I want to change the title of it, where it says sales, I'd click on that, and I could make a new title. As I change it inside of this pop-up that looks like Excel, it's going to change the chart that I have in my PowerPoint. That looks good enough. So that's going to cover a lot of the inserting. If you'd like to insert a picture, you can click on Pictures. It's going to give you some, you can either choose to add a picture from this device, you can choose to add a stock image, or you can choose an online picture. If you click on online picture, it's going to give you a pop-up like this, and it will connect you to Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine. And if you type in, for instance, cats, it's going to bring up a bunch of pictures of cats that you can click and choose from. Generally, you'll also see that it'll say Creative Commons only. These are items in the Creative Commons, which is as copyright goes, you are able to use them so long as you do not say that they are your own or use them for any type of financial gain. If you're just using them for an internal work presentation, I'm not sure why you'd be showing cats in an internal work presentation, but anything in the Creative Commons is open for fair use in those environments, generally. So if we want to add this cat picture, we'll click on it there, click on Insert, and we'll bring the cat straight in there. If you need to resize any of the images, you can click up here in this corner, and it's going to give you, your mouse would probably be smaller, but you'll see these arrows, and you can hold, and as you left click, drag to change the size of what you're working with. You can also, if you just click in the middle, hold down the left button on your mouse, and you can drag and drop any of the elements wherever you'd like. Now, for some of the charts, if you drag and drop, it's going to do things like this, where it separates it and moves it around. If you, let's get all these pulled back in. In order to not do this, instead of clicking on any part of the chart, instead put your mouse into the box, but not on the chart, and drag it around to move it. That pretty much covers most of the information on inserting. You can also, if you need to add a text box, click on the text box, drag while holding down the left mouse button, and release, and it'll set a new text box for you. Moving off of inserting, we're going to now move over to the Draw tab. The Draw tab is not one that I use very much. It gives you options on a couple drawing tools. you have an eraser, a pen, another pen, slightly different, they're pretty much the same, but you can set different sizes and colors for them. A pencil, which leaves a different image when you drag it on the screen than the pen, and a highlighter. If you would like to change the styles of any of these, just double left click on them. It will then give you options to change the thickness. You can change the color. So if I want a very thick line that is orange, I'd click like this, and then as I hold down the left button on my mouse on my PowerPoint slide and drag, it's going to draw a line to make any image. If I would like to erase it, I'll go and click the eraser, and if I mouse over it, it'll just automatically disappear. For highlighting, I would click on the highlighter. Let's change that from a yellow to a green. Click and drag, and it will allow you to highlight. If you'd like to erase it, you can either click undo or click on the eraser, mouse over it, and it's gone. Another option you have in the drawing tools is to use a ruler. The rulers work very well because it allows you to, instead of making all these squiggly lines, move the ruler around to make your lines a little bit straighter. I prefer just to insert shapes rather than drawing, but that's partly because I'm not very good at drawing with the mouse. So if this might be something you need to do, or if you're in the middle of a presentation and you go, okay, real quick, I want you to look at this cat. You can draw a quick circle around it so people can see what you're pointing at. Or if you're giving a school presentation as a teacher and you need to point something out, you could draw a quick arrow. That's not a very good arrow. Like I said, I'm not great at drawing with these. If you want to get off of the ruler, just click it again and it is magically gone. So we've gone over the design panel, design tab that lets you see all the different styles you can use, the insert that lets you insert tables, charts, pictures, shapes, anything that you may need, the draw one, which allows you to mark things up in a way that you can quickly get rid of. One thing that is cool about the draw is that if you need to select multiple elements that are inside of one of your tab. So by element, I mean, let's see, by element we have this cat, we have this chart. You can click on this little lasso tool, draw a circle around everything that you would like to select. And, oh, does it not want to do it today? Well, this this is just for the ink strokes. Duh, that's what I'm thinking. If you want to just get something, you can draw an ink stroke, draw a circle around it, and then that will allow you to move the strokes that you have made. Same goes for the highlighters. Draw this, get a circle around it. It's going to highlight both of those, and now I can move them both around at the same time. Get rid of those. Alright, so that covers insert, draw, and design. Next we're going to move into transitions and animations, which are where a lot of people can get stuck up in Microsoft PowerPoint. So, for transitions, click over into the Transition tab. It will then give you a whole bunch of these different options as you move to different slides. The transitions are used for when you are presenting them to allow you to mix up the way that your PowerPoint slide moves. I personally am not a huge fan of overusing transitions. I think they can make it a little bit distracting from your information, but a simple push or wipe animation can be pretty good just to move it along, especially if you're going pretty fast. The animations are also pretty good if you are making a PowerPoint presentation that runs on its own. A lot of times when giving a PowerPoint presentation, you will manually click. If you look over here where it says Advanced Slide on mouse click, you will click through each of the slides as you go through them. This allows you to pause on a slide if somebody has a question So you can answer it very quickly before you move on to the next one. And you don't have to worry about as soon as the person asks a question, the slides just keep going. And then all of a sudden you're 10 slides ahead and you have to click back a whole bunch. If you are just putting up a presentation, going through slides that you need people to watch, but you're not going to be there talking them through it, you are able to set it so that after so much time, after 10 seconds, it will immediately move to the next slide. To do that, you would go to the Advanced Slide when you're in the Transitions tab, click After, and then you can set the amount of time that you would like to use. You can also set transition sounds to make applause, to do arrows, or any of these. Again, I'm not a huge fan of them. They a lot of times can be pretty distracting, but if you're trying to find, if you're doing a presentation that's a little bit funny, or it's okay in that situation to make some jokes, you can always mix it up with some sounds up here. Once you select a sound, it'll ask you what the duration for it will be, and generally defaults to 2 seconds. So if I say I want it to make applause sound, I could say I want it for 2 seconds, or I could say I want it to applaud for 3 seconds. So it lets you move it in 1/4 of a second intervals. And I can also click Apply to All. This will make it so every single slide would make applause sound as soon as it was transitioned to. Again, I don't recommend that. That would be pretty distracting. Now let's look at the transitions in between slides. In order to change it, it'll automatically be at None by default. Click on one of the transitions you'd like to use. Let's try Wipe. Let's go up here. This one will look a little better because it doesn't have so much icons. So we'll do Wipe, and you'll see everything slowly appears. Split is a little differently. The middle appears first, and then everything else appears around it. You can also do random bars, which kind of makes it look like things are dissolving in. Uncover is going to do that. Cover is the exact opposite. Flash is going to flash things like that. Once you have the transition that you would like to use set for that slide, you're good to go. If you want to double check how it looks, you can either click on the transition again or click Preview, and it will show you what the transition is going to look like. You also have effect options, which if you're using something like a push or a wipe, I can say instead of wiping this way from the right, I want to wipe from the left. And it's going to flip it back. So again, here is from the right, and here is from the left. It just goes in different directions. You can always click Preview to double check what it looks like, and you can set different ones for each of your slides. So here we have this one wipes that way, and then this slide, when we would move to it, would do a split and appear out in that way. Again, it's not going to show up if you're clicking through the individual slides in this mode, but they do show up when you are in presentation mode. So if you want to give a little bit of spice to any of your slides, the Transition tab is going to allow you to switch up the way that each of them looks. Finally, animations. Animations are going to change individual text elements. What do I have clicked? There we go. Animations are going to allow you to click on an object or series of words, and when you do, let you change the way that those words work, or the way that a chart or other graphic might appear. They're kind of similar to the transitions, but the animations, instead of affecting how the slide appears, affects how pieces of information appear on the slide. You have a whole bunch of different options over here, including when to start, so you can choose to have it fade in on when you click. You can choose how long you would like it to last, what the delay would be. Now the delay would be as soon as it transfers to this slide, it will now wait half a second before this will fade in. You have a whole bunch of different options. They can fly in, float in, split, wipe, shape, wheel. I don't use these, again, kind of like transitions too often. I think they can be a little bit distracting. but depending on what you're using your PowerPoint for, they can be a good tool to raise interest and to keep people engaged in your presentation. Very similar to transitions, animations also have effect options that allow you to do the sequence as one object or to break up a whole bunch of different animations. If you have, let's see, we'll click here. We'll say this one is going to fade. This one is going to split. And this one's going to wheel. Then I can go effect options. And for each of them, for the wheel, I can choose if I want 1 spoke or 8 spokes. It'll just change the way that the effect looks. So you can set multiple animations on one slide. The fewer per slide, the better. Again, we don't want our things to look way too busy and absolutely crazy with information. Finally, the last bits of information that you will be using on PowerPoint is when you want to present your slide. So to do this, you can either choose to present from the beginning. Clicking on that, it's going to begin the entire slide. I have it set up to go through with my mouse click, so when I click, it will move on to the next slide. And I have to click for each of these pieces of information to appear. There are the animations that we worked on, and you'll notice that when I click to the next slide, we have a slide transition again. Once you get to the end, it'll say the end of slideshow. You can click again to exit out of it. You can also, if you're choosing to just double check how your animations work, again, you can always preview your transitions and your animations on their individual tabs, but you can just click play from current slide, and it's going to start the full PowerPoint show based on whichever slide I currently have selected. Click through all that over here on the left side. If I click on the very beginning, it'll basically play from the beginning, but if I don't want my first slide, I want to start at the second, clicking from current slide instead of from beginning will just start with the one that I have selected. You can then have a couple other options, including Present Online, which allows you to post it up through Microsoft Up Online for people to access. Generally, if you're just using it inside at work, you won't use this very often. And then you have options to rehearse your timings, recording the slideshow. All of these you're going to find on the slideshow options. The number one that I use is just from the beginning or from current slide. Lastly, we have the Review tab. This allows you to check your spelling the same way that you would in Microsoft Word, and also to translate text from a different language or to change your language settings. So if you are typing something up and it is in, maybe a slide is in Spanish that you've typed up, you can choose this so that you won't get the red squiggly lines underneath every Spanish word. It will tell that slide, hey, I want this one to be in Spanish. Don't spell check it for English. And then it also won't spell check your English words and say, oh, these are wrong. These aren't words in Spanish. You can also make comments. This is useful if you are ever working on a PowerPoint with someone. Instead of typing stuff there, you can type add comments. And I could say, maybe add more information to this. Once you have it set, it will show up for for anyone else who's looking at it. They can choose to reply. And make these notes. Eventually, you're able to mark them as resolved and jump around them to finish up your comments. It just allows you to work collaboratively with other people on the PowerPoint slides. When you are finally wrapped up with your PowerPoint and you are good to go, or maybe you're still working on it but you need to take a break, it is always very important, especially when using a program like this that is not on the internet and doesn't save automatically, to go up to File, and then you will be able to choose any of the save options. You can choose to save your PowerPoint, give it a name as something that you'll remember, place it where you'd like in your computer where you will be able to find it later, and you'll be all set. One final option and thing that I think is very interesting about PowerPoint is that you can choose to print the slides on your PowerPoint. Let's change that. gonna make this weird for me. We'll do print to PDF so you can see an example. When you go to print, it is going to generally by default just show one of the slides on each of the pages. You can choose to print a selection of the slides or only print the current slide that you were on when you went to go click print. And you can fit multiple slides on one page. The multiple slides on one page allows people to see a slide, take notes with it, or to have an idea of where they're coming next. These can be great as handouts for your presentation so that people can follow along and take notes next to the information. Instead of them having to copy down every single bit of information on your slides, they have that in front of them and can just add little notes that they have. So if you're doing a sales report with PowerPoint and discussing how the sales are, they, instead of having to write down the numbers in the chart, will just have it available for them on the printout, and then can write little notes like, "We did great, nice work everyone," next to that. That pretty much concludes all the basic features of Microsoft PowerPoint. If you're interested in a little bit more in-depth ideas for how to work with the program or for other tech classes, please let us know. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it helps you. My name's Jacob, and this has been the PowerPoint video from Midpoint Library. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.